Hey, what is up, guys? It is Harrison Barron from Growth Generators, and today is a little bit different of an episode here. I am joined by my friends Josh Bowman and Aaron Newman from Qumulex, Qumulex.com. They are a video surveillance and access control software company. They do something super unique. We're going to be getting into that, into the video today, how it all works, all that kind of stuff, and they have some pretty hard questions for me. I have done zero preparation. They didn't give me any notice on them. So, gentlemen, take a moment, introduce yourselves, who you are, what you guys do.
Well, I guess I'll go first.
Go
So
ahead.
my name's Josh Bowman. I'm the Director of Marketing and Product Management, the world's longest title, barely fits on the business card.
I'm Aaron Newman. I'm sales engineer for North America. Basically provide top tier sales support for all of our sales guys and our rep firms out there.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
And it is top tier. He's good.
He is very good. He's
good.
very good at his job. So, so for those of you that don't know, I do a little bit of work with Qumulex here, and I think I've spoken about this in the past, but there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for MSPs to get involved in security, to get involved in cameras, access control, and I'll hold up the fake money here because everybody seems to like the fake money. But ultimately, this puts more recurring revenue in your pocket, and I don't see why anybody wouldn't want those things. So to start off with, I'll let you guys explain a little bit about Qumulex, how it kind of came to fruition, and how it's kind of changing the industry.
Sure. Yeah, so I can give you the 30-mile overview. Qumulex is a unified video and access control solution that is cloud native. So basically, when I say unified, that means that unlike a lot of the traditional solutions, you get from a single interface both your access, your door control, as well as the video. So rather than an integration, this is all in a single pane of glass, making life very easy. We are progressive web app based, meaning you can use the same application on any device. So it's going to work on a Mac, on a PC, as well as any of your mobile devices. We are a Mercury. No, you could almost see. There you go. So we're a Mercury OEM partner. If you're not familiar with the access control world, yeah, there you go. Even better on the wall there. Especially in North America, Mercury is probably the single largest access control hardware manufacturer. So we have these OEM relationships. So in addition to the subscriptions that we offer to our service, we also offer these companion products right on our price list to make everything easy for you. And something that we did, probably not as big for your audience, but in our world, in the security world, many are not managed services and many are not on that subscription model yet. So we do offer, the way that we license it is called a QXP, basically for QX Control Professional. And that is available as a perpetual license or a subscription. So we do try to meet customers where they are and make adoption of the cloud easy. And my pitch is a little rusty. So
That's okay. That's all right.
was,
Look, it's we're warming. I'm sure I'm going to make a video either before this one gets released or after this one gets released. I haven't quite decided that one yet. About Qumulex, because I think it's important, and I know that there's a lot of money for MSPs to make, with these services. So and rolling this out, at least for video surveillance, is not terribly difficult to do. So I think that there's a huge benefit there for the right MSP and the right people that want to get involved in this kind of stuff. So cool. That was a pretty good overview of what Qumulex is. So now I know Aaron had some hot questions for me that didn't get asked on, and for those of you that are listening, there was, and what I would highly recommend you doing is, before you go through this episode, although I'm sure my followers are gonna watch this first, but we just recorded one, and I'm not going to put this out until after the Qumulex one is live. But there will be one, and I'll link it down in the video description and the podcast description. But go check out the Qumulex one. I talk a lot about MSPs and the migration for integrators to take over and send people to the cloud, which is already what the MSP world is doing. I mean, if you're not already, newsflash, you probably need to start. That's probably a good, safe bet. So fire away, boys. Ask the questions that you want to ask, and we can dive as deep as you guys want to dive here.
Sure, I can go first. So to provide a little context, we were initially talking about, you know, the adoption rate between managed service providers getting into the physical security business, and then also vice versa, the physical security integrators, getting into the managed service space. And there's a gray line that kind of separates the two. But what we were discussing is how they were, both of these businesses were essentially converging. And one of the questions I brought up, and just from being in the security industry and having worked for a security integrator, and I know some of the challenges around paying people. So traditionally in the security world, we have large capital expenditure budgets, and the salesperson is typically paid as a percentage of that total, and that's their commission, that's their upside. So what I was asking Harrison earlier is, how, from an MSP perspective, not necessarily the guy who owns and operates his own business, but from the larger MSP, I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop here, but I have a couple names in my head.
You can
How
name
would
drop on
those?
this show if you'd like. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so like, Presidio, for example, like how would me working as a salesperson there, how would I get paid on selling, these subscription-based services? Would I actually get a percentage is kind of what comes to mind. Maybe I get a little cut of what comes in monthly, and then the idea is, death by 1,000 cuts in terms of my commission check, or is it done differently? That was kind of
Yeah.
always something in the back of my head.
No, great question. So it's actually pretty funny you mentioned this because I literally was just on a call with a gentleman yesterday about this. So there's a couple different ways that I've seen MSPs structure commissions on sales, right? Because the nice part is this is a nice recurring revenue type model. Typically they're getting paid on, and so there's and it kind of falls into two categories. So the managed services where they're charging a set number, usually typically between I would say some as low as 75, which is probably a little too low, all the way. And once again, this is depending on where you are geographically located, all the way up to two, three, $400 a seat per month. And then going from there. So they usually get a percentage of that. And I've seen everything, and most MSPs kind of structure their commit. There's no like gold standard for how people pay salespeople, right? I've seen people that are like, well, if they sign a 3-year contract, you get the first month up front. So you're telling me that if I go through the arduous task of selling somebody a 3-year contract of managed services, which is infinitely more expensive than any of our licenses at Qumulex, I'm only going to get 1 month of that, right? And that could be, from several $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars, but only the first month. I typically recommend people, if you can get somebody in on a 1-year contract, and there's also extenuating circumstances. Is there an AE, an account executive at the company that's going to take over that customer? Are you farming, are you the hunter going out and getting the new business, and there's somebody in the back end taking care of them and maintaining them, an internal salesperson, a VCIO? So they all kind of vary, right? If you're the only salesperson, you got to make it worth the salesperson's time. So I usually recommend 1 month if it's a 1-year contract. I think that's a pretty fair agreement. And if for any MSPs that are listening, you can delay the payment and say, hey, they just have to stay for 3 months. And then on the 3-month mark, you're going to get that commission check, right? So it's a little bit of a delay, but you're not waiting forever for it. That way, the burden of onboarding and setting things up and the massive labor costs that you're about to incur can settle down before you actually cut them the check, and then you get paid the rest of those months throughout the year. It is perfectly acceptable. Now, if they are going back and renewing again, right, it could be the exact same that 1 month, and then a small maintenance fee, right? Because now you are taking on the role of a account executive, where they might get up to, I would say 5% seems to be a pretty fair number of that annual renewal, because when something happens and it's anything remotely related to sales, that salesperson might be doing all of that work as well. In this world, right? It's usually, and by what I mean this world is physical hardware, right? So computers, I would put this in physical hardware. Even warranties, there's still a cost associated with that. So it's usually a percentage of that profit margin in there. So if somebody's selling a $50,000 system and there's $15,000 in profit, or I'll just use 10,000 for an even number, $10,000 in profit, they might get 10 to 15, maybe even as high as 20% of that profit, depending on what they're selling. And obviously this is going to come down to on a case by case basis. This is by no means the gold standard, but 10 to 15% of that sale or of that profit, because you couldn't pay 10% of that. That would eat up all of your profit, but you still want to make sure that that person's compensated appropriately for it. And paying good salespeople well increases retention and ultimately makes everybody succeed.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So it just varies, and you can't give 10% of we'll call it a desktop, right? A 30, an Optiplex 3070 from Dell. There might only be 5% if you're lucky, maybe 10% profit in there. So what are you going to make on $1,000 computer? Maybe $100, and then by the time you get your commission of that 10%, like, cool, I got a $10 bill. But there could be, you might get paid separately based on the labor that's associated with it. So, hey, if we're charging $175 an hour for labor, you might get 15 or 20% of that or 10% of that. So it's a little bit more money. I mean, it's definitely not going to be earth shattering, but more often than not, your goal is to not sell. And then if they have an internal salesperson, they might get a smaller percentage because they're just sitting there getting the machine, ordering it, shipping it out, or having the config team set it up and then delivering it. So it definitely varies on a case by case basis in what business owners, some business owners don't want their salespeople to make too much money, which doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know why. You'd probably want your salesperson to always feel like they're just killing it so that they continue to kill it. But essentially putting on, for the lack of a better term, the golden handcuffs, right? Making it so good that they don't really want to leave. So it really just depends on the company, who they are, what their profit margins are. Some companies just don't believe in profit. Don't ask me why. They just they run on paper thin margins. Doesn't really make for a great fun company, but that's just how some people are out there. Hopefully that was a good answer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely provide some insight. I mean, the hardware component, also fascinates me, because I feel like exactly like you said, the margins in hardware these days are so slim. You're not going to keep your lights on with that alone. So, the other aspect of this is, as a managed service provider, one of the things in my mind, I feel like you have to be very diversified, right? So you have to come in with this portfolio of products that obviously has to be complementary. But so yeah, let's say I do sell PCs, but like you said, the margin's so small. Now it's like I'm having to layer in telephony, I'm having to layer in, email services, I'm having to layer in maybe even threat ops, or even, network and border security, whatever. I have to, kind of sell them the full package to make money. I mean, is that statement true?
100%. So, in the MSP world, I typically recommend, and this is just proven with customer psychology, 3 packages, right? A good, better, best, right? And then and every MSP. So I talk about managed services a lot as an MSP is a managed service provider, but what if we change the idea of a managed service provider to a managed solutions provider? And not enough MSPs are niching down, which is crazy to me, right? You can easily over deliver every single time if you come up with something truly unique for one specific vertical. That could be dental, that could be manufacturing. I mean, even this morning I got my car inspected and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm sitting here for a half hour. There's a whole tens of millions, if not $100 million MSP out there that could be made that only services repair shops and like tire centers. Because there's still tons of mom and pop shops. I'm sitting there for a half hour. I'm like, how nice would it be to get on Wi-Fi instead of this concrete building, playing my phone game at 7:30 in the morning? Like, No, I could have brought a laptop and gotten things done, but I know that their infrastructure is terrible, right? And while you might not get rich on one or two of them, you will make a lot of money on a lot of them, right? Um, so it when you come up with that idea of something that's truly unique, the better you can serve that one industry and provide something that nobody else really has figured out yet, you will succeed by leaps and bounds compared to the competition in this world. And knowing your limits, I think a lot of MSPs, as tech people, and everyone here is a tech person, we get confident, we think that we can figure out just about everything, and there is definitely an essence of truth to that. But why get involved in things that you're not good at when you can leave that to somebody else and just do things that you're really good at and efficient at and super profitable with? And that's what I think is the best thing for people to do, and coming up with those solutions and selling them over and over and over again.
Yeah,
Finding a niche is like so important. I think people undervalue that. I think that was important what you said there, because I have a friend, shout out Curtis, if you're watching, Curtis. He worked basically for a manufacturer of equipment. I don't remember which equipment, to dental offices. And Jeremy, shout out Jeremy. They were buddies, and they got together and started their own MSP, and they became wildly successful. And their focus was providing IT managed services to dental offices because there was a niche that made sense. Curtis understood the specific applications that were important to them. He understood the technology that was specifically important to them. He understood like their quasi medical devices, that need to ride on the network and all the requirements around that. And he knew that the niche was important because he was visiting these dental offices and understood by talking to them and getting to know them that, if you look at doctors' offices, those have all been swallowed up by large hospital systems, if not the insurance carrier themselves. We talk about the companies that still have their own IT department that aren't using managed services. Well, there's a big one. But these dental offices are largely independent. Very few are part of a large, healthcare network. And they have that same problem we were discussing on our podcast episode of, where are we going to find somebody that has all these different types of knowledge, and they don't quite have the same level of restriction that maybe a full-on medical office does. There's still a lot of that type of, compliance and so forth that they have to deal with as well. And last time I checked, they had a very large building around the corner from my house with, a couple hundred employees. So, I think finding a niche where not only do you understand it, but you understand what their needs are. And you can uniquely service them and make their life easier. And the other thing you get with that is a lot of these type of, specific customers, they know each other, they network, they talk, they go to their own type of trade shows, just like we do. And they start saying, hey man, you should talk to Curtis and Jeremy. Like, these guys are just making my life easy. Here's what they're doing for me. They really did not even have to advertise. And they were wildly successful. So I think finding a niche, and just to add on to that a little bit, I've been studying marketing more and more over the last couple of years as my career has kind of evolved. And I notice, Reddit, for example, there's a lot of negativity there, but I pick up some little tidbits of information here and there. But I see a lot of people struggling, and they're like, I've started my own agency. How do I find customers? I'm always getting laid off. And I have had to kind of realize that I've always been kind of very niche specific. Like, I focused on a specific type of industry. I kind of know where I can present value. And that's what makes it different versus just kind of a vanilla, here's a thing that I do. Now, what kind of business or who is it for? Like, they're just kind of going after anything, and they may not have the same kind of value as if they had a specific niche that they understood well.
I just want to put out there, none of that was prompted, because I beat this horse to death on probably 60% of my YouTube videos.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, you could edit out the part where I was redundant.
No, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. Like, it's just, and this is zero prompt. I didn't tell them at all to say that, but I have this conversation all the time, and this goes tremendously with the integrator world as well.
Yeah.
Just pick a niche. Like you don't have to get it right on day one, but having a niche and being able to go up to somebody and say, I work with these people. My fiance doesn't even know what MSPs are. She just tells people like, oh yeah, he helps people online with security stuff and technology and the MSPs, whatever that is. Literally verbatim, that's what she says, whatever that is, right? And I honestly don't even think she would know what Qumulex is and if the cameras weren't in my house. So nobody knows what an MSP is unless I say like a high-end IT company. But picking that niche is gold, because if you can find that niche, and people are like, Harrison, stop saying this right now because I know it's true, but the gold is there. And then it's just like, I don't think people realize that business should be almost boring, or the goal is to get your business to be boring, because you find you find the product, you find the solution, you find the customer, and then it's just cranking that thing out over and over and over and over and over again. And that is what a truly, and then after you have the millions of dollars, yeah, diversify, start adding other things in there. But
Right.
every great company, from Amazon selling books to Apple selling personal computers to Dell selling, and IBM selling personal dedicated business machines, they all picked one vertical for the longest time, and then they diversified when they were super successful. And I don't think enough, small businesses, and what I mean by small businesses is this advice goes across the board, but specifically for MSPs and integrators. If you find one vertical that you absolutely kill it in and you have more knowledge than somebody else in, you're printing money at that point.
I think if you're going to start a business, you should be thinking that way. I think too many people say, well, here's a skill I want to obtain or service I want to offer, and I'm going to, set up shop, and then I'll go find some customers. I mean, who your customers are and what they look like is something that you should be thinking about before you incorporate. And I think part of that is understanding, again, where you offer value. I think everybody has a unique set of experiences, just like my friend Curtis, he was, working as essentially a service tech, serving dental offices, but he understood their world and he understood their needs. And, once you establish yourself, you've got all the mechanisms now to broaden your horizons, but you don't want to do too much when you're first getting off the ground, because 100%. You're going to it's so much risk. It's too much to know, and it's too varied. And you're going to have, with a certain type of vertical, you're going to have customers that have certain needs, and it's going to be easier for you to tool up correctly to meet those needs versus trying to meet the needs of like 20 or 30 different industries. But I think a lot of people make the mistake of, they'll look at something like Amazon and they'll say, oh, I wish I could build the next Amazon. Well, Amazon didn't start out that way. He literally was selling books online, and that was his niche, and that was it. And then every step along the way, he reinvested in his business and broadened his horizons. And they were, initially small, manageable changes. Okay, I'm selling books. Now I'll sell other stuff, and it just kind of grew from there. Okay, well, now I've got to host servers. I got to host, essentially data centers to, house all of this data to sell these products. Okay, well, I've got that figured out. Hey, now I could sell access to these data centers. And just think about where all that came from. Bezos just sitting there at a desk in a little office with a cardboard sign selling books online. So I think sometimes it's too easy, it's a mistake we make. We take on too much at once, and we look at the end result of all that evolution and try to start that way. And I think you're more likely to fail if you do that, because you're taking on too much and you're trying to be everything to everybody on day one. And unless you are funded by a Saudi billionaire, I mean, you're just not going to have the resources to do that. Start small, start with what you know, start with where you know that you add value, and then grow it from there.
I love it. And Aaron, I'll let you, or Josh too. I'll let you ask another hard question if you have any in your back pocket. Otherwise, we'll move over to Qumulex and MSPs and where there's some tie-ins there.
Yeah, please do. I mean, this was a very eye-opening experience. I'm starting to see some of the, possible apprehension for MSPs to break into the security industry. Based off this conversation, it makes a lot of sense, especially with them specializing, right? Like that. If like say for example, if I was just focused on, dental offices, like you said,
Mhm.
Josh, and now I'm kind of like seeing it from their perspective, like, yeah, why all of a sudden do I want to retool my business to then start installing security cameras? I mean, don't get me wrong, the jump isn't that far fetched. I mean, if you're pulling network cable, for data drops and, wireless access points, I mean, it's not much different than pulling a cable, a Cat 6 for a camera. Um, yeah, I guess maybe it more or less is around access control. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud. The apprehension with jumping into access control. Yeah, you start to deal with ADA requirements and all that. But I mean, still, even then, it might be bigger on the outside. Like from the outside looking in. Like general rule of thumb for any MSP that's out there wondering, um, if you walk in and you see an ADA door, all you're really doing is you're just hooking it up to a different head end. It's not like you're all of a sudden having to reinvent the wheel. I mean, half these municipalities, they're following really old standards anyway. Like I live in Maryland, and my local county, we're like, using NFPA 2018. So it's like, they observe the codes that are in that rule book. And um long story short, the request to exit button's already going to be on the wall. The crash bar to exit to get free egress out of the building's already going to be on the door. I'm just simply hooking up a different set of controls, but you might not know that from the outside looking in. So I can see the apprehension. um
Well, codes are different everywhere.
Sure.
right, exactly. You just have
So
to
you
know
don't
the
have a
local
lot of that in the
municipality.
IT
Yeah.
world where my requirements are different in this town in Maryland versus this town in Maryland, or nothing
Yeah.
like this city over in Ohio.
Yeah.
So
Um,
let's dive into that. If an MSP wanted to get into, and I'm not encouraging most MSPs to start
mhm.
getting in access control today. Just baby steps, guys. Cameras. Let's start with cameras because there's usually no regulation there. But if an MSP wanted to get into this world, what do they need to know to fully get in, right? Obviously they can go to Qumulex.com, and if they want to try it out, Qumulex.com/try, and I will leave a link down below if you want to get a personalized demo, and I'm happy to set that up as well. That'll 100% be a part of this. And I would encourage you, if you want to learn more, to go take those steps. And if you tell them that, hey, you want to see me, I'll happily pop on and say hi for you. But if somebody wanted to get into the I don't want to say integrator world, but getting into access control, video surveillance, selling these kinds of things, what are some of the basic steps that they can start to follow, or places that they can go learn um, to get the knowledge that they need to succeed in this industry?
I mean, to my opinion, first of all, I would start with video. I think video is going to be much safer and much easier to learn. It is, we in the security industry will often talk about, cameras, doors, and other IoT devices. Well, the reality is in the IT world, we are an IoT device. We are one of the others. And so the cameras are a very simple IoT device, very easy to manage remotely. And you can mess anything up and create a hazard, but generally most people are intelligent enough that they could, if you have installers that are hanging access points and installing products like that, you should be able to handle a camera in most basic scenarios. Now it's going to get a little harder in somebody's parking lot on a tall, in a tall situation outside of the building. But, if a lot of your customers are SMB and you're talking about cameras in easy drop ceiling locations, not too much challenge. I think that's an easier product to learn and to manage to get started out. And I would say if you're going to go that route, video to me would be the easiest to learn. If you go to Qumulex.com, there's also, I believe under the reseller page, we have our authorized reseller training, which is free, or you can go to our YouTube channel and you can browse all the training videos if you don't want a certificate, and you can watch the videos there and learn a lot about the camera setup and how to work with the cameras within our interface. And a lot of the camera manufacturers themselves have a lot of good videos out there too. And I think I think you're not necessarily going to be as expert as maybe an integrator, a security integrator. But if you try to not get over your skis too much and you start with those simpler environments and basics, I think video is a great place to start. And then, we just had the whole speech about niche, which I didn't realize was a big thing you're already talking about. So sorry for the redundancy, but I think that same mindset should always be throughout your organization and throughout your approach. So I would use the same sense of understanding your niche in this application and say, okay, there's a line I'm going to draw here. If somebody asks me about access control, I'm not ready to do that. And what you want to do is find a partner that also supports the products that you support, an integrator that knows what they're doing, that can handle those things. And then allow yourself time, again, to evolve and grow towards that if that's something you're serious about. I think when you get into the access control, if you get into, fire alarm is licensed, first of all, and there's going to be certain, I think Chicago may be one. I may be talking out of my rear end on that, but there are cities out there. If you want to do access control, you essentially need to be licensed. So you also have to understand your market and what the requirements are there. But I think there are very few places with those types of restrictions on video. I think video is a very easy way to get started in security.
Is there a place to go look up, rules, regulations for, does somebody go to Google and say fire alarm codes, firearm license, fire alarm, by the way, fire alarm licensing, fire alarm certificates, whatever that is in your XYZ town? Or how does somebody go about finding out what the rules and regulations are, right? And most businesses, and I still think that this is true today, at least small businesses, right, are not going to have access control, right? It'd be nice if they all did, but I mean, I have a ton of friends that own, businesses and buildings, and I wish I had my keys on my desk, but they still use a good old fashioned key that probably will snap off once or twice a year in the lock, and they'll have to call a locksmith, right? I think that that's still a pretty common thing, but for those that want to seek more information or learn more or grow, where do you think a good place for them to start learning and getting that knowledge is?
Man, there's a variety of places if when you want to get into rules and regulations. Each state can be different. So first of all, maybe look up in Google search low voltage license, access control license, things like that for your state, and then work downward. There are some states that have statewide requirements. I'll use Ohio as an example. Even structured cabling, the Cat6 wiring that you would install for your, phones and other devices. In Dublin, Ohio, the next suburb over, you need a low voltage permit. And you need to register for their annual license in order to do that legally in Dublin. If you come over here in Hilliard, we're the Wild West. As long as you are legally allowed to operate as a business, there's really no harm, no foul, so long as you follow the NFPA requirements, essentially the National Electric Code, so that you're not, say, putting a penetration through a 2-hour firewall, not restoring it and creating a fire hazard, or running things in the same conduit as electric. And there's things that you learn in that industry that you're not allowed to do, that so long as you follow all of the basic rules, you're okay. I think Chicago, St. Louis both require some level of low voltage licensure. So it's really, I'm disappointed that it works that way. It was one of my frustrations as somebody who did projects nationally for over 20 years. I mean, it was hard to keep up, and it would change so much. I mean, Ohio used to have nothing, and then there were some statewide requirements that were pretty minimal. And then you had to start checking the website of the municipality that you're going to do the work in before you would quote a project to see if they had. I mean, I was around 2003 or 2004. I started checking the website for any municipality just to make sure they hadn't decided to add a license for that. And then, of course, you do have to pay for an inspection, and they'll outline the process. So I think when in doubt, check with your local authority. Start with the municipality, the city where you're working, check their website, look for the building inspector. Maybe you could start there. and explain what it is that you're going to do, and they can explain what the requirements are usually.
Aaron, any more insight on that too?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, don't be too discouraged. I mean, a lot of these requirements, they're for good reason, right? So like Virginia, for example, they have something called the TCJS, and it is literally a curriculum that walks you through different security devices. So in a sense, as an alarm technician or low voltage technician, however the state designates it, it's more or less, training for the field you're entering. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Not only that, but like some municipalities handle it different. Like they maybe want all the technicians, project managers to be fingerprinted, because ultimately what's happening is that, once you start to get into that side of the business, you ultimately know how to defeat it, just like, you would if configured firewalls and what have you all day. You might know, maybe I'm being too vague here, but like default username and passwords, you can catch people out, whatever, how to kind of manipulate. Same goes with alarm systems. You know how to get around certain things, how to activate doors, maybe from the secure side, which is, vulnerabilities in a sense, but there's a multi-layer approach to security. But anyway, I'm getting too deep down the rabbit hole. I would say, yeah, I follow along. I subscribe to 100% everything that Josh is saying. Start off with low voltage and kind of work your way down, and you'll find the rules and regs. And not only that, but as you start to, kind of get into the business, and I hope you are looking, to expand your portfolio, please start with Qumulex. We can definitely help guide you a little bit in that sense, because there are a lot of installers out there who are just doing parts and smarts, meaning they hold the keys to the customer. They're the ones who are ultimately responding to the RFP and what have you, but then the actual physical install work is being subbed out. And yes, you would have like a project manager, for example, kind of manage the subcontractor, and maybe that's something that you're interested in, maybe it's not, but ultimately you don't have to take the whole burden on day one. There's, or maybe it's like you said, it's not even your niche. You might be dealing with doctors' offices, and in that case, it might be 1 or 2 doors instead of, a 100-door project, whatever the case may be. Yeah. Hopefully I didn't go down the rabbit hole there.
No,
And I would say, I do want to clarify, I didn't mean to dissuade anyone, but it was frustrating for me because I was already involved with it, and these things were kind of new, these permits and new regulations, the fact that they were local. It used to be, if you followed the National Electrical Code, Chicago, St. Louis, Las Vegas were like your big outliers with additional requirements. And then all of a sudden it was like, what? I needed a permit. Now here's $600 that I owe off the top on my project that I didn't even, like, how was I supposed to know that? So I think it's just where I go back to, don't get over your skis. You don't have to build Rome in a day.
Yeah.
Decide if there's something that you want to get into. And I think security is a great world to be involved with. Start with what you think you can learn safely. I think, again, video, I think is much easier, as long as you're dealing with, standard conditions, normal projects. I think that's a little safer. But the other thing is, we were just talking on our podcast where we're more addressing security integrators. They're looking to grow and they're looking to do more. And, I think there can be a lot of harmony between the managed service providers and these specialty type of installation companies like a security integrator, where they would probably love to have your business and they would probably love to work with you, and be a provider for you and represent you and take care of your customers. And the more you're around it, the more that maybe you can then maybe just manage the overall maintenance of it and setup and configure. And when it gets into the install part, maybe you use that integrator. So I think there's not one single playbook that you have to follow. If you have somebody that works in your organization that used to work for one of the integrators, they may have a lot of that information and you may be able to build around them, or you may be able to go out and hire somebody like that can bring that information. I used to do telephone systems was another one of the things that I did. And, a lot of the MSPs, as that went the hosted route and Ring Central became a thing, and I used to sell ShoreTel, and they came up with a Connect Cloud, initially called Sky. That really changed the knowledge level of the installer and the process to how to get it out there, and it fit the MSP world very well. Now I feel like the majority of the telephone systems you're going to see, at least out here in my neck of the woods in Ohio, I mean, is all done by managed service integrators. And they went out and actually hired a lot of these individuals that worked, at Joe's Telephone, and brought them in so that they had that kind of legacy knowledge and understood that industry. Yet they were supported, they were surrounded by, IT experts that could fill in the gaps for them as well. So I think you can find some good marriages, and I think you just have to kind of figure out what route works best for you based on the resources you have.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think, and it kind of ties back into the other episode, is, this harmony that businesses are going through in this change, right? And thankfully, the MSP world, I don't really have to teach technology because these guys are already,
Right.
they have box of cables, hardware laying around, all. My MSP people know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not sitting around looking at around your desk and you don't have cables and wires and extra hard drives and God knows what, and you probably have taken over too much of your home's space with technology, especially things that you might secretly know that you're never going to plug in again. You're probably not a real MSP person.
You just described Aaron's wall, by the way.
I got some network switches on the ground.
I'm like, I have a bunch of cables there. I have headphones. I have, an extra computer there. I have a box of cables in the corner. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for this, and I think with Qumulex and not going too crazy, kind of like you guys said, but for MSPs to take this leap of faith, right? Businesses still want to know what's going on in their office, right? They still want to know, and not so much even an office. I was just at a restaurant the other day and hanging out and having a cocktail, and I sat down with a friend of mine, and she's like, "Oh, I'm getting a call from the owner. She's a frequent flyer there. She knows the owners, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on over there? Like, we see stuff on the camera. Can you give us a little more, a little more color of what's going on, right?" And the benefit of being able to see what's going on whenever something is happening is tremendous, right? I think a lot more, hi Penny, a lot more MSPs need to understand that, like, yeah, maybe they don't want to get involved with going all out and cutting up doors and installing, locks and all that, but hey, these people that still have traditional keys, right, want to be able to check in on their business. And I think, adding that to the repertoire, no brainer, right? When you're first starting out, you don't have to go crazy. Don't, stick with what you know. But over time, and you start to build, it's a natural progression of you're already taking over their computers. You're probably providing, network security, SOC, to a degree. You're doing some level of cybersecurity, whether that's, leveraging antivirus like ESET or going to the nth degree and locking down environments and whatnot. At some point or another, you're going to migrate to phones because why not? They're, mailbox money coming in. You're probably going to take over printers because what printers work. What printers aren't going to give you a hard time. You're probably going to be pushing the same brand of printers over and over and over again. Cameras are next. Like, for the integrators that are stuck in their ways, step aside. MSPs are coming in. No, I'm just kidding. But it is true. Like there is that natural fit, and not every business also wants to invest in the hardware for access control. Hey, I just want to be able to keep an eye on my business. I don't need, for some buildings, 100% access control is a no-brainer. But for other businesses and other buildings, traditional keys still work. There's no licensing. Are they as effective? Debatable, right? But at least you could still see what's going on, when it's all happening, and to tie
and
back
with analytics, there's business intelligence now too.
Sure.
I mean, more and more of these analytics are giving you people counting. They can tell you when people are loitering. They can tell you if a line is too long. at the checkout counter.
Sure.
I mean, there's so much more you can do even beyond the security. It's quite beneficial. And again, if we're talking to managed service providers right now, I think the main thing you should understand, because I was involved with that for many years, when it's done best is when you are a turnkey operation for your customer. And that makes life very easy. And so you're going to develop a relationship if you're providing the service as well, where they are going to really rely on you and depend on you. And when they have a new initiative that involves the network at all, they're going to come to you and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you help me with this? So, again, if you want to jump in and learn, that's great. But I think it's never one size fits all. Start to get to know some of these security integrators in your area. Find someone you can build a relationship with that's going to do the job well for you. Certainly, if you're looking at selling Qumulex and working with Qumulex, we can help connect you with good partners like that that'll work with you. But at the end of the day, I mean, let's talk about when I was not an MSP, when I was more of an integrator. I mean, the first year that I started doing business with MSPs, I probably did 2 or 3 million in revenue just because of building these relationships with MSPs. And they could, I would provide them that same level of service that they were trying to provide their customer. Hey, this company's moving in 2 weeks and they didn't think about their audiovisual system in their conference rooms. Can you help me out? Yeah, I'll get somebody over there today.
100%.
Whatever it was. And, you can benefit each other that way. So, whether you want to try to move into that space and take over for the integrator and become the integrator as part of your managed services, or whether you want to partner, I think it's really up to you and your knowledge level and what plans you have. But don't turn it away, because in the end, your customer, they want that turnkey. They want it easy. These business owners you're dealing with, whether they're a plumber, a dentist office, a warehouse, I mean, whatever they do, their world's not getting any easier. Whatever you do for a living, you're doing it with less resources, with more expense, with tighter timelines, and AI seems to be affecting everything under the sun. Everyone's got a million things to deal with. So if they can come to you and you can take care of it and get it done for them, you've provided immense value.
100%. And that goes back to niching down. And it's funny too, you mentioned what you were describing as a strategic partner, right? Building these partnerships up where, another thing that I've beaten to death in previous videos, but why not? It's this thing doesn't weigh 1,000 pounds, right? You can just pick it up and make the phone call and just introduce yourself. And if it's awkward or you don't like the person, you call the next person, right? That's just kind of how it is, right? And by building a strong relationship initially, right? You don't have to have a deal that's ripping hot, ready to go, and then you're looking to just hand to somebody. It's actually better off not doing that, right? Where you can actually build a relationship. You can have this partner in your back pocket, and when somebody says, "Well, can you do video surveillance and access control?" Well, we do. We love this company, Qumulex, right? And we actually have somebody that will go and set up the whole system, and then we can manage that system. Well, it might not be the most profitable to the integrator. I'm sure that the integrator is also going to be providing something where they need help and they're going to be taking care of maybe more things that you might not be taking care of, right? And there's always going to be this fine balance, but that's the beauty of building a business that you love and get to have fun creating too at the same time, is the ebbs and flows. And I think that that's also super important.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was an integrator, if you were picking up the phone and you were calling me and you wanted to have a conversation like this, I was super interested to have it. And very rarely, I'm thinking really hard, I cannot think of an instance where an MSP would then have accidentally stolen a customer from me. In fact, I think I probably typically sent customers to them because they would say, "Oh man, my network guy is terrible. I need something better." And I'm like, "Well, let me tell you about Revolution Group. It's one that I worked with here in Columbus that's become quite large." And, it was a great relationship and they appreciate that. And, that caused them to want to repay us by sending more business our way. And, it does ultimately end up becoming a scenario where you're presenting that security integrator with business they're otherwise not getting. You're solving a problem that security integrators sometimes have. I mean, right now it seems like it's feast, but then comes famine, and it's how do you market yourself? How do what does sales look like in the security world? How do I go find this business? And, if you have a great relationship that's feeding you work and it's a healthy relationship, very few people are going to, not have a good conversation with you, for that. I think they'd be very happy that you called. So
1,000%. I couldn't agree more. Cool. What other questions you guys got? Otherwise, I'm happy to answer another couple that are what Aaron would consider hard questions.
he's
Otherwise,
accepted your challenge, Aaron.
Yeah,
I think you got to
I'm
come
ready,
up with
man.
a
I'm
doozy.
ready. I know where my knowledge ends. We haven't hit there yet.
I'm unprepared to stump you. I just came in hot with the how do you pay
Sure.
your salespeople
Yeah,
as
yeah.
an MSP.
So I have one.
That's it.
Fire away.
All right. So as you've noticed on my crazy LinkedIn page where I'm always taking some type of a Coursera course or another,
Sure.
I've taken a lot of courses on AI, and of course we use a lot of AI here at Qumulex, and that's only going to grow. But I wonder if the MSPs are there to solve technical challenges for their customers, is AI on that horizon now too? So if I'm like an accounting
100%.
firm, am I coming to my MSP and saying, how do I use AI to run my business better?
I think there's going to be AAAS, AI as a service, right?
Mhm.
That's coming. I would be dumbfounded to believe it's not, right? I think more and more people are adopting AI. More and
Mhm.
more people are getting involved in AI. More and more people are starting to realize the power of AI, with this new GPT 4.0 update
Mhm.
that they've had a little bit of a hard time releasing. Like revolutionary. And
Mhm.
some of the tools that MSPs are using are now leveraging
Mhm.
AI, right? So everybody knows I'm a huge fan of super ops. They're leveraging AI. Another huge fan of Atera, and they're using AI. ConnectWise, a little bit more of a legacy system, they're
Mhm.
leveraging AI. So AI is just going to become, for the adopters, another tool in the toolbox. For the
Mhm.
non-adopters, something that they're going to fight against, right? It still blows my mind that I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I don't use AI." I'm like, "Oh my, I'm like trillion times more efficient." I think it was Aaron was like, "I put everything in AI." Like if I'm decoding something, literally
Mhm.
today, right in one of the chats, and if you don't think it's here to stay, you're crazy, right? Just like the cloud is here to stay. Um, there's so much to be offered, right? And it goes back to kind of
Mhm.
what you were saying before, Josh, with niching down, right? And figuring out who you can serve best. Because if you can serve them best and you can come up with a truly unique package, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face until people start believing it, because your buddies are a prime example of this, right? If you pick one niche and you focus down on that one niche and you just keep going after it and going after it and going after it, I could make content about sales and marketing for every business out there, but I only make content for sales and marketing for MSPs, and it is growing
Mhm.
faster than most people's channels I know, right? And
Yeah.
granted, my largest competitor is just shy of 8,000 subscribers, and they've been around for 16 years or something like that, 17 years, and I've been making videos now for a year and what, 2 months, and I'm half their size, right? So the proof is in the pudding. I'm not preaching something that I don't actually do or believe in. Going through that journey, leveraging, AI as a tool in the tool stack, teaching employees how to use it, getting it readily accessible to people that need it is huge, right? Does everybody want to leverage it to the max potential? No, and that's okay. You don't need to, but having that as just a weapon in the arsenal is a no brainer for MSPs, for businesses, even for integrators too. I was it is so smart. I went to Google the other day. Prime example. I play a video game. I know Aaron plays it too. Escape from Tarkov. For those of you that don't know it, well, we're just like chopping it up on one of our chats the other day, and someone's like, "How many gallons of water is 4,075,750,000 of it, right?" And I go into Google. I'm like, "How many gallons of water is a 0.6 liter water bottle?" And Google didn't give me an answer right away. Like wanted me to prompt it and put more information into it. Went over to ChatGPT. How many gallons of water is this? It does the entire equation, like verbatim what you would, what I would have had to punch into Google and use somebody else's calculator for, like immediately. Like, now granted, this is bottles of water in a video game that we're all playing, but like, that's just nutty to think about, right? And when AI does get as good as, we all hope it is, and it's not making fake things up, right? I think that's probably where you do.
I think we're getting there.
We're 100% getting there. But there's also AI too, where, and for those of you that don't know or not staying up to date, Google basically made an agreement with Reddit to use Reddit threads, right? And there was a kid, I don't know if you guys heard this story, but there was a kid that was like, oh, how to make tomato sauce or pizza sauce thicker. And he's like, just add Elmer's glue, it thickens it up. And ChatGPT told that, not ChatGPT, but Google's AI told that to somebody, like, how do you make your pasta sauce thicker? And it was like, according to whatever their Reddit thread was, you should literally told somebody to use Elmer's glue, which is not consumable. Please don't do this. But to add that to the pasta sauce to make it, thicker, right? So take things with a grain of salt.
That same bad information you may have gotten from the internet anyways.
100%.
I don't know if I really fault AI for that, but one thing I'm curious about from like a marketing perspective, because I know you're very marketing savvy, of course, what you do here. I've been wondering, so Google has released in the last week or two, it's very recently, that now when you go to Google search, instead of just presenting you the links that people are paying good money for.
Oh yeah.
Now it's first trying to give you the information so you don't even need to go to a web page using AI. So how is that going to affect the SEO game? Because that seems like a game record to me.
So yeah, SEO, I came from the SEO world. I focused a lot on SEO for a long time. And a part of it is time wasted. I think the other part of it too, at the end of the day, is one, AI only knows so much. And we, the people, right, feed AI. We feed it the information, right? AI is only going to know so much. I use AI to help me script my videos and structure things because I'm not so good at that. And AI plays an integral part of me being able to create 5 videos a week, right? Because I would die otherwise trying to come up with and write scripts and all that. It just takes too much time, right? But I can tell chat what I want to talk about and have it give me an outline, so that way I make sure I touch on the important topics and don't miss things, right? And it overall is a net benefit to certain people, and I can change and modify certain things. So at the end of the day, AI doesn't even know some of the things that I know. And we, the people, have to feed AI the information so it can learn, and then we're going to turn into that famous Will Smith movie, I, Robot, right? I would be, is there a day that comes? I don't know, but for right now, until that day comes, we have self-driving cars. Yeah, I mean, at some point or another,
AI is not going to have to scrape the web forever.
But I'm
wondering. So right now, that's a big industry. Like, you came from SEO, where I want to be that first thing you see when somebody Googles something in a zip code. I think it's really how it works. It's very regional. So now people have been paying good money for that. Now they're not at the top of the page. Now they're down below after you get your suggestions from Google. So is it just simply a matter of, do you think Google is going to offer something where you can try to be the suggestion that it offers?
Yeah. They look, at the end of the day, just like I held up my fake money before, they want this, right? So they are going to sell spots. They at some point or another, right? This is a pretty transformative spot that we're in right now with AI. Even sponsored posts are getting squashed by Google's AI, right? And I'm sure that there's somebody in accounting at Google or finance at Google that is losing their hair as fast as I am, because they're not making the money that they probably were making just a few short months ago. But Google is, look, at the end of the day, Google's a business. OpenAI is a business. OpenAI is selling API licenses to tons and tons and tons of people, right? And at some point they have to be profitable, right? And who knows when that'll come. And Google's in the same boat, right? Google has to continue to make money. So Google, I'd find it hard to believe that Google's not going to figure out a way to monetize it in one way or another. And I think for the businesses that have focused a tremendous amount on on SEO, the one thing that has continuously crushed on Google is good content, right? And same thing on YouTube, right? The things, good content can't be replaced, regardless of how good AI actually is. There's always going to be a home for good content, and good content on Google specifically has been able to get through all of the updates that Google has tried to crush bad content on. So at the end of the day, my biggest and best advice would be, yeah, it's something to worry about, but like, just focus on driving the car, getting to where you want to go, providing people with good information, writing a blog and making sure that, it's truly unique and has your own zest on top. And I think that that's really, people are still hesitant on Google, on AI, right? It'll get you the answer they want, but like, they want the human experience. Ask AI to explain what blueberries taste like. It's never eaten a blueberry before, right? It's only a conglomerate of all the information. But if you want something truly specific, you're gonna need to go to a Google search and get that. And creating content, I would even say now more than ever, needs to be done.
I'm asking chat right now.
What does a blueberry taste like?
Yeah, it has an answer. Has a
Oh.
unique and pleasant flavor that can be described as follows: sweetness, ripe blueberries are it's like earthiness, mildness. I don't know, man. I think it can tell you.
Oh, 100%, right? But like, and you could say, slightly tart flavor, right? Depending on which blueberry you get, right? And it's going to give you information based on what other people have written for it, right? But you can't have it, if you're the first one doing something, it's not going to be able to give you the right information for it. And who knows, the lines of AI versus written content will be blurred, right? And I think now more than ever is the time to capitalize on not everyone using it, right? And there's still people that won't drive a Tesla. I don't have a Tesla, but that's because I don't want to spend the money on one. But there's people that are like, hey, AI is horrible. Tesla has successfully proven time and time again that their cars are, I think it's like 5 to 8 times safer than any human driving ever, mile for mile. So there's always going to be adopters, and then there's always going to be people. There's still people out there that are like, no, Mike, I want a carb on my car, right? I don't want the government to EMP it and it just won't work anymore. There's always going to be that, but jumping on for the bandwagon is probably not the best idea. I mean, probably the right idea. Correction. Sorry about that.
We know what you meant.
Thanks. But cool, gents.
Good.
Well, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap this sucker up. This was a good one.
I think we tried hard to stump you. It didn't work.
Look, I'm not that good. All right. But I also strategically didn't give you any time to prepare. So
that's true.
And like I said in the beginning, we were just coming off this. So give a quick, shout out to Qumulex, sign off for you guys, and I'll wrap this sucker up, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, if you want to know more about Qumulex, check us out at Qumulex.com or email our awesome sales team at sales@Qumulex.com. And we're all over social media, YouTube, so check us out.
Names?
My name again is Josh Bowman.
And Aaron Newman.
Love it. And there will be links down below in the video description, the podcast description, to go check this out, to book a call. If you want to just jump right on and book a call, we're happy to help in that regard. There's no hiding that. But other than that, as always, guys, I love you for checking out the YouTube channel and all the support you guys have given me. The two of you guys and the followers, and looking forward to a couple more of these in the future. I think there's people I want to have on and talk about this kind of stuff, but I think there's a huge opportunity here for MSPs. I hope the MSP audience that follows me is enjoy this one, and please leave information down below, whether it was good, bad, you want more of this, you want less of this. This is the information that you guys provide me helps drive the YouTube channel in the direction that you guys want to see. So in many cases, the squeaky wheel gets the grease on this one. But other than that, love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, peace.